I'm in a project called Formatting Your Code. I want to show you how to arrange your code on the screen according to the rules of the text editor. To do that, I'm going to spend my time in this class, the book class. This is a simple class. It has a couple of properties at the top. It has a method with a few parameters, and it has this use format document method. If you look at my code in here, you can see that it's not aligned the way I would like it to be. This equal sign doesn't have any spaces around it, and this equal sign has too many spaces around it. Now, of course, I could come in here and manually fix that by using my keyboard, but I can also use a set of rules to format these. I'll use Control-Z to undo those changes, and let me show you the format document. I'll go to Edit, Advanced, Format Document. There's actually two formatters in here, Format Document and Format Selection. Format Selection only works with what is highlighted in your text editor at the moment. I use this keystroke here, Control-K, Control-D, instead of opening this menu. I'll show you that in a minute. You see what happened? Those extra spaces were removed and the extra spaces were added on this line. Now let me put them back the way they were. And let me also change the way this for each loop looks and perhaps the way this method looks. I moved the curly braces around. Now I'm going to do the Control-K, Control-D shortcut and watch what happens to my code. The curly braces got moved back to their original positions and the spaces got added. So what's happening is the C# editor has a set of rules defined about what to do when you format the document. So let's go look at those rules. Here they are. They're in Tools Options and then in the text editor. Then you open the C# editor and click on the formatting section. In the general area, you've got things like automatically format completion on semicolons. When you type a semicolon on the end of a line, it will format that line. When you type in a curly brace at the end of a code block, it will format the line. And when you paste code into your document, it'll also format it. I leave these all checked. And then I also go into these areas and see if there's some new rules that I would like. For instance, how do I want my curly braces to be arranged on the page? I would like to have an open brace on a new line for type. Is that what I want? Or do I rather have it up on the same line as the class declaration? For today's example, let's say that I want it on the same line as the class declaration. And I want to do the same thing for my methods. And I want to do the same thing for my control blocks. So I'll move this curly brace up on the if statement. Now when I go back to my document and I do the Control-K, Control-D, you'll see that it moved this curly brace up here and this one up here, and it also moved the one up on my class. Next, I want to talk about how to format the parameters inside this method. So I'll go back to my Tools Options and click on Spacing. Here we can say Insert space between method name and its opening parentheses. That sounds good. And I'll also put some spaces between the arguments. Click OK. Now keep an eye on this when I reformat. Control-K, Control-D, and it added some extra spaces. So you get the idea. You have total control over what's happening here. This is specific to each text editor. I work a lot in XAML, so I like to change my settings for my XAML editor too. Let me open up this sample WPF control, and then I'll make this editor larger so you can see it. I'd like to control what happens when I format my tags. And in particular, I'd like to control what happens to my attributes. I like having my attributes aligned one below the other. So I'm going to go make some changes here. Let me add some extra spaces in here, some extra spaces here, and then let's go set some editor options. Tools, Options. I'll open up the XAML editor and go to the formatting section. And here I get to pick whether I want double quotes or single quotes for my attributes. I prefer single quotes. And I get to choose what happens to my spacing. This first one's called attribute spacing. How much space do I want between my attributes? Currently, it's set to position each attribute on a separate line. But there's two other options. Preserve new lines and spaces, which essentially says don't touch my code. And the second one, which says insert a single space between attributes. Let me do this one first. And then do my Control-K, Control-D. And you see how it put everything on a single line, including this top element up here. Now I'll switch it back to the old one. Control-K, Control-D. And now you see how each one's on the separate line and they're nicely arranged in what looks like a table of contents view for me. You can also specify whether or not it removes the excess spaces in your document. So if I put a few extra spaces in here, or blank lines I should say, then I can use this option. element spacing to control what happens with my new lines. This means don't touch my code. This means collapse multiple empty lines into a single line. And this means move all of the empty lines. I prefer this setting right here. Control K and Control D. I can't tell you how many times a day I use Control K and Control D to format my code as I work. I find it indispensable to my sense of order while working, and I think you will too.